XYZ and Ways for TV live from Cape Coast in the Central Region. Thank you for making time to join our conversation with NDC's 2020 Flagbearer, John Dramani Mahama. As we are aware, President Mahama began his tour of the Central Region on Wednesday morning. His first stop was Gomwa Nyanyano. It was a rousing welcome for him. The obvious factor as ordinary people, traditional and community leaders openly admitted is his track record. He has been engaging canoe owners, fishermen, fishmongers, traders, and commercial drivers, ambushed excited young men and women, addressing rallies, assuring millions of hope, preaching the gospel of the manifesto, and explaining why his main opponent, Nana Akufo-Addo, the president, should not be given a second mandate. This morning, we will engage him on his campaign so far, his reaction to issues raised by traditional leaders and ordinary people who scream at the top of their voices during his whistle stops to catch his eye, discuss on critical national issues he has been speaking to, and what is in his manifesto for the people of the Central Region. Most importantly, what will guarantee a credible and free, fair elections. Join us on Facebook, YouTube, and this is also live on Agro TV, Volta 1 TV, CTV, Power FM, an affiliate of TV XYZ, Gas FM, Crown FM, Bringer FM in the Central Region. I'll be introducing you to our special guest this morning after this break.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. Natural mineral water. Simply natural.
Thank you for staying with us. We are live from the Plush Rage Royal Hotel here in Cape Coast, the Central Regional Capital. Call friends to join this conversation. Also us on Wave TV on Facebook, YouTube, and all John Ahmed's social media handles. Sir, good morning and thanks for joining us. It's always a privilege to engage you on this platform.
Good morning, Eric. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you again. I think the last time was about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, your first stop was Gomwa Nyanyano. I think it was, for many of us who followed you around the country, it was another surprise when you were making a whistle stop in the Central Region. The Kaswa, for example, to be specific, because that was your entry point. How did you react when you saw that mammoth crowd virtually blocking your vehicle from approaching the lorry park?
Yeah, it's typical of how Ghana is growing. You know, Accra is a mega metropolis, and on the fringes of Accra, you have these peri-urban communities. Accra has virtually merged with the Central Region, because then you have Kaswa, you have Gomwa Nyanyano, and all of them on the periphery of Accra. And one of the typical things that you will find is that Gomwa Nyanyano is a fishing community. Mainly, it was a small fishing village. But then, as a result of the expansion of the capital and the need for people to get new places to settle and build their homes, people have begun to settle in what was typically a village community. And so the issues of urbanization have become a problem. A lot of young people, no work to do, dashed expectations, and so on. And so when we arrived there, yeah, I mean, we had quite a good reception.
Pictures on the screen. I'm sure later in the course of the program, those watching us will see how you entered the overpass area. But you were talking about the caliber of people who have really formed the constituency called Enclave Kaswa.
Yeah, Gomwa Nyanyano is different. Kaswa is Autu Senya East, and Gomwa is a different kettle of fish. And so you had all these young people. There used to be an irrigation site there for small-scale irrigation agriculture. They do a lot of fishing. They have a lot of needs. They don't have a secondary school. And so that's one of the things that the chiefs and people put before me. They need a better road. The road network is quite in a poor state. So that's one of the major things they talked about. They need better safety and security because of armed robberies and so on and so forth. So when you visit, you get to know the felt needs of the people, and it makes it easier for you when you're in office to be able to deal with some of those issues. So instead of just sitting and espousing some sloganeering, one district, one this, one that, it's better to get to know what the felt needs of the people are, so that when you come into office and you're addressing them, then you know that that is what really matters to them.
So we're going deep into details.
Yes.
But we have observed across the country as we follow you that many of those who mob you are young people.
Yes.
And it signals something. For you, how do you feel?
It's only natural because the age demographic of Ghana has changed. We have a majority of young people, and so naturally you expect that young people would be the ones that are involved in political activity. But aside from that, there's a lot of dashed expectations. Young people feel let down by our democracy and our politics, and that the country is not working for them. They don't see that the country is giving them any benefits, in terms of their citizenship and who they are. And that's why I've said that our next focus, we'll continue to do development. You must do roads and things in order to facilitate the lives of people. You must improve their health care by building polyclinics and hospitals and all that. But most of all, we must turn our focus on finding jobs for young people. And that's why we are coming up with things like the crop processing zones, so that you look at what the comparative advantage of each segment of the country is, and you put in the capacity to process and create a value chain within that area. And so jobs is our next focus as a government.
Fishing is a major occupation of the people in the central region. And this summarizes the mood along the landing beaches, because you went to Elmina, and then I think on that same day you met canoe owners, fishermen, fishmongers, and other people along that value chain at the Cape Coast Center for National Culture. I want us to listen to what reflects the mood among people in that industry when you engage some of them at Cape Coast.
Mistakes are for binum ayozibi nsinu nina so ofi ibnaze ofi kasa na akwati tiaban okan dede daw this obaya presenter obama afofo Fabian, one fisherman, one canoe, one net, one albomoto, one sea, one fish. It's a man for Fina Kizilechi. Now I'm there. 2017, Ghana Fedomina, you win the Ampa, where's the Enhamo? A bokopo, skipping in a besan. As a quarter premix, no oya yoho, a fofu pi no ye kaskasa. Na yats nasi, ye de ampa. Oya, one could say, His Excellence. Oh, never a bad day were a frofu yaho. Ah, nyamina tomorrow, I be pen. May you dare, a what summer. Why you be here? Why but they were for your home.
So that was the reaction by one of the fisher folk who spoke at the public forum at the Center for National Culture. We followed you to Gomwanyanyano, and we felt that level of anger, disappointment, even at Elmina. Now for you, what have you done, or what plans, to be specific, do you have for the fishing industry going into the 2020 elections?
My interest in the fishing community came from my president, Professor John Evans Mills. When he was a candidate, you know, considering that he's a native of the central region and comes from Cape Coast, which is a largely fishing community too. He took an interest in the fishing communities and what they do. And so he visited all the communities along the coast, visited the communities, fishing communities along the Volta River. And he realized that the subsidies and support that government was giving to those communities was not getting to those who really needed it. And so what did he do? He came up with a new system. He took the chief fishermen, in this area they call them Apofohene. Then he took the canoe owners, and then the fishermen. If you don't understand the system, you know what you're talking about. Somebody owns the canoe, and the fishing people are take the canoe and go to sea.
So it's like they rent their facility.
And they go to sea.
Okay.
And so when they come, the canoe owner has an interest in it. The fishermen who go fishing have an interest in it. Then they have the chief fisherman. So having identified all these groups, he brought them together and asked them to form what they call landing beach committees. And so all the fishing communities formed them. It had nothing to do with politics. It had nothing to do with who you were, where you came from, your ethnicity, nothing. And then the premix was directed at them. The outboard motors were directed at them. And then they would decide, you know, who they sell the premix to. You know, we subsidize premix by 50%. And so government takes half the cost of premix. And then what the landing committees did was they were allowed to put a small markup on the premix fuel, and then they put that into a fund, and that fund was used to develop the coastline. They could either do a place of convenience, you know, because people used to go and do their business on the beach. And so to keep the beach clean, they would build a place of convenience on the beach side. They could do a shed where they could mend their nets and all that. And so I took an interest in that, and it's made me understand what things should be. Unfortunately, this government comes, and it assumes that the landing beach committees were formed by the NDC, and so they must form their own committees. Unfortunately, they go and take their party executives and form them into the committees. And so they send the premix to their party executives, most of whom are not real fishermen, and then they put their profit on it and sell it at the black market rate to the real fishermen. So there's a lot of anger on the coastline. People are not happy. Outboard motors arrive, they go to party executives who put their profit on it and resell it to the fishermen. And so naturally the fishing community are upset. You heard the fisherman who was talking. He's the leader of one of the groups. And they feel that their expectations have been dashed. They've not been treated fairly. And so I've assured them that when we come, we're going to get them to independently and democratically reconstitute their landing beach committees, irrespective of political affiliation, and then we'll restore the system that we had in the past.
That looks like one sector.
That's one sector.
Right.
There are other sectors. It's a whole value chain, because then after you finish with the fishing people, you have to look at the market, how they market the fish. And that trade is dominated by women. Our mothers, our sisters are the ones who dominate that trade. They need the wire meshes for the smokers, and so normally government supports them with when we're in office, we used to support them with the wire mesh. They need the basins that they used to go to the beach side and bring the fish to the shore. They need cold storage so that when the fish has been bought, if they're not able to process it immediately, they're able to store the fish. So we started building cold rooms along the landing sites. Some of them are still operational. Others, we left office before we operationalized them. And the particular one at Gomanyanyano here has been abandoned.
And there's supposed to be one at Pram Pram or Adan area.
Shama, I remember, and then Takrade area. The one at Nyanyano, when I got there, the complaint was that after we left office, nobody has operationalized it, so it's just locked up. But these are the things that make that whole value chain. Then we built a fish processing plant at El Nino, so that we had to capitalize that plant so that they'll buy the fish off the farmers, they'll fillet it and make it, pack it nicely for the restaurants and others in Accra and other places that need the fish fillet for their business. You know, unfortunately, it has not been capitalized, it's not been operationalized properly, so it's not being utilized in the way that we intended it to. It's got cold rooms in there, it's got sheds where they can sell the market, the fish directly, you know, to people who come. It's a bit like a fish market too. You go in there and the fish is there, you can buy it wholesale, and then you take it to the shoreline or wherever the market is to go and sell.
When we went to Elmina, I believe that as we have this conversation, we'll have the privilege to share the videos as the people received you. What ran through the conversation as I spoke to some of them along the sidelines was that the landing beach itself had to be dredged.
Yes.
They also spoke about the need to expand or improve the services along the coastal belt. I know government is initiating 1 or 2 of such projects. What is your plan? Continue them and then add on to the demands that are being made as you go around.
It's been on the drawing board since Professor Mills's time. He promised that we'll build a fishing harbour in Elmina so that the canoes can come into a safe berth. That project hasn't taken off, but it's a feasible project because the livelihood of Elmina is basically based on the fishing industry. And so when we come into office, we'll continue the project of building a fishing harbour. But right now, the difficulty they face is that the mouth of the Benya Lagoon is silted. And so it makes it difficult when the canoes come back for them to go into the lagoon.
And just to cut you short, those watching may need some explanation. While you continue the conversation, that is the picture of you actually paying the surprise visit to the Elmina landing beach, and you could see the reaction of the people. But you were on a subject, you can continue from there.
Actually, it will explain it here. If you look at where I'm standing, that is the beach side, let's say
that is the main
fish market.
The fish market at the beach.
It's along the Benya Lagoon. And so the boats come into the lagoon, and then the women are right there. And so when they land the fish, they buy the fish off the fishermen. And so I took a walk along it. It's a bit like a fish market. You see them selling shrimps, all kinds of fish. Very beautiful, nice place. But just that, it's not been engineered properly. There are puddles of water on the floor, you know. We can build it into a beautiful fish market where people can go and buy fresh fish, right, you know, from the canoe. So
the specific plan for the people of Elmina with reference to the beach is that that place will be developed?
Yes, we have to dredge the lagoon in order that it creates more depth in the lagoon, and then dredge the mouth of the lagoon so that the canoes can come in easily and then come to the quayside and take the fish off. Then we have to develop the site where the market women are. You must repave there nicely so that water does not collect there. And then we must have some shops along the road, like stalls, and where they can, you know, sit in there and do their business.
Will this reflect at the other landing beaches from Axim or Dixcove towards through Qatar to the Aflao area?
The challenges are the same. The challenges are exactly the same. And so if you build either a fishing harbour or a landing beach, then it must have the facilities that allows the canoes to come in safely, and then it must have the facilities where the interaction between the fishermen and the market, the fish traders, you know, is able to take place properly. And then you can also have a place where they process the fish. Either they have their fish smokers there where they're able to smoke the fish and get it ready for the market.
We'll be talking about agriculture because we are in a related sector. Agric is important in this country. Cocoa, palm fruit, pineapple, sugarcane, and even last night when we were at Abakrampa, the chief made reference to oranges and what plans you have for that sector. I want you to listen to this man who came angrily asking me to speak to him because he had a message. I want you to listen. I'm sure you have not seen it. And then I'll take a brief reaction and then we'll continue this conversation on the agric sector.
Mahama, it's been a while for 8 years. Over 8 years, and I am president. At a month, only baby quality, not 4 years. And John Mama, only 4 years. When we know about Kenya, not in my end to put a wire. It is what the matter, and I want to about my John Mama. MPP, you know, MPP, number of times going to make MPP, my NDC, and where do we go more? It's a better movement, my NDC. I want to watch and counterfeit members here. Oh, yeah, now full rare. One for color, Baba, one for Trump for there. And enough know what to I want the mama to show. Yes, Canada. Yes, John, the man of incoming president.
So that was the reaction. The reason why I brought this was that the man who spoke first wanted to catch my eye or wanted to speak. And there were people there who were mocking him that John Mahama is there, you are an MPP person, so why are you here? But he insisted, and I got the tape. And it reflects somebody who is disappointed because of promises made. And this cuts across several places we've been to. How do you respond to such people when they run up to you or stop you by the road and want to pour out their frustration?
It is a history of dashed expectations. One of the things that I said after Nanado took over was that one of the main challenges he will face is how to manage people's expectations, because he raised expectations so high in both spoken and unspoken, verbal and non-verbal communications. He gave an impression that in 4 years he was going to change Ghana into heaven. He actually said it, that he said he would transform this country in 18 months. The challenges are deep-seated, and you need to work at them. Change will come gradually, not overnight. And that is why you need to manage the expectations and let the people know that it will take hard work, it will take unity of purpose for us to be able to change our country. But you can't create the impression that you're going to build a factory in every district, you know, and people are going to get jobs to do. And at the end of 4 years, you, according to your own count, you built only 50-something factories, many of which were there before you even came. You give money, they build a fence wall, and then you go and put one district, one factory. When they ask where's our factory, you say this one, say, but this factory was here before you came into office, you know. So managing people's expectations is important. And the point is, our projects and what we tell the people to do should be realistic, so that they can see that it has to do with what is achievable. So, for instance, when we went to Asebu, Abra Asebu Kwamankasi yesterday.
That's Abakrampa.
Abakrampa, when we went to Abakrampa. We've always known that that is a big citrus growing area. Indeed, in Kwame Nkrumah's time, he put a factory there to process the citrus. It was called the Asebu Lime Factory. That factory has changed hands several times today, since then. It's now in the hands of a private sector. But that's the kind of thing you can do. That's why I talk about crop processing zones. I don't talk about one district, one factory. I talk about crop processing zones. Because if you look at the value chain of agriculture, it goes beyond districts. Districts are political delineations. But agriculture goes beyond political delineations. If you look at the cassava processing zone, it's not in one district. If you look at the citrus processing zone, it's not in one district. If you look at the cashew processing zone, it's not in one district. So what we've done is we've mapped out this country according to the processing zones. What is missing in our agricultural value chain is the processing angle of it. We encourage the farmers to produce. We give them the support to produce. We give them fertilizers. We give them tractors and everything. But then after they produce, we leave them to themselves. And often the markets cannot take it. And so either there's an abundance, the price falls, the farmer does not get any profit on what he's done, and it discourages him. You tell him to grow soya beans. He grows the soya beans. When he finishes, he can't find a good market where he will get a handsome return on his soya beans. And so the next time, he would either not be interested in farming again. So we need to add that agro-processing element. And that's why we're mapping our Ghana into crop processing zones. And if it's the cassava zone, we're going to put cassava processing plants there. If it's cashew, we're going to put cashew plants there. In the case of Abura Asebu, whoever the private owner of the factory is, we're going to see what his challenges are. If it's retooling, whatever he needs to be able to make that processing plant functional, we'll help him to do it so that he can buy the citrus fruits there. One of the chiefs told me that they bring trucks from Cote d'Ivoire and come and buy the oranges and the citrus from Asebu and take it to Cote d'Ivoire because they have processing factories in Cote d'Ivoire and go and process it there. But they come and buy it cheap from our farmers here. And so why can't we process it here ourselves? We're importing orange juices and things from South Africa. They come all the way from South Africa, and yet we have the capacity to be able to process ourselves. I noticed that the Nkumfi fruit processing factories is a good initiative. And I think that there should be more of such factories, you know, processing in the zones that we have delineated in order that we can add value to the produce that our farmers are able to put on the market.
This is TVXYZ and the conversation with NDC's 2020 candidate John Dramani Mahama live on Wezo TV and Facebook and YouTube. And we have Ago TV, Volta 1 TV, CTV, Power FM, Class FM, Accra FM, Brinya FM here in the Central Region, all picking this feed. And we are live from the Ridge Royal Hotel here in Cape Coast. Now, Your Excellency, the people in the Central Region rejected you in 2016. I want to quote some figures here. For example, in 2012, you pulled 52.12%, or 492,374 votes. Nana Akufo-Addo secured 430,135, or 45.53% votes. At that time in 2012, NDC had 16 seats, NPP had 7. In 2016, the tables turned. Nana Akufo-Addo beat you. He won 53.22% of the votes, and you pulled 43.43%. I realize you sound vindicated as you speak to at various debates. I want us to listen to you at Swedro first. And I will ask you why I have that impression, and what is changing the tide as we speak now.
Nana Akufo-Addo beye omanpenyi. If he said, Anka wanyo omanpenyi a, Anka Ghana for beka say Anka Nana Akufo-Addo na ye omanpenyi a, Anka Ghana beda ni sura himemu. If he said, Abra Yawa Bemu, and Puntu Ayeye, near C. Ayarsabia, Bako, more than 30 hospitals. Now you see school are dying. 200 new secondary schools. Primary schools, you see more than 1,000. Chiefs compounds, 1,600. Ye Tunsio, Ye Chekania, Ye Yakwai. And so then, you say, Akokosa say, and Yakromafe. Yes, any mamambo, if we are Kunyado so. Nana Akufo-Addo mbeje. Nani adwe say, if you nine ewa. If you nine waheya. If you nine na abano. Etina Mika said, if Nana Akufo-Addo had not become president, we would have considered him as the best president Ghana never had. But God gave him the chance. Secondary school back on Ofa Kanyam Kobibia, on Tunsioma Obia. Yes, a year of rules. Also, I think Yakwang a pansa, I say. Now, I was here share the resources the two parties had when in government. Abraham Yomampini, a car made the Ghana home, 56 billion Ghana cedis. And so we shall be a Kaswa interchange, Terminal 3, Tema Habo, Takradi Habo, Kwame Kuma interchange. Swedro town roads, 56 billion. If you're 90, Nana Akufo-Addo better Akunyano so. A cow the Abeka Ghana home. 140 billion. And so, Nyaya baby son say, at the end of this Sikana year, every Saucha we need a baby. Hospital Bakuni home, secondary school be any home, Aquan be any home, Yankee Kanyan Kobia, Yantusioma Obia. 840 billion. No, now maybe says at the end of
Your Excellency, is this what is reflecting the mood among those who mob you on your rounds? And is this the reason why you appear very confident in this campaign?
It's partly the reason. They are dashed expectations because he projected himself and came across like he was going to be the best leader Ghana ever had. Unfortunately, he's been a most serious disappointment to Ghanaians. Development improves the quality of lives of people. In my time when we're building hospitals, roads and things, they said no, they don't eat roads, they don't eat hospitals. What they want is money in their pocket. So fine, even if he did not build, development projects like hospitals and things, at least then people expected that they should have jobs, they should have money in their pockets. Neither has happened. he's not made any impact on providing the social and economic infrastructure that people need. And at the same time, he has killed more jobs than he has created.
I've also heard Dr. Baumia suggesting that they've created over 1 million jobs, and the Nana Akufo-Addo's government has performed better than any government since one.
Where are the 1 million jobs? Show me. In which areas? Aside from the artificial jobs in NAPCO and youth employment was there before they came. NAPCO is the only new initiatives they brought in job creation. And they themselves say they have 80,000 people. So which other jobs have been created? Companies have collapsed and are collapsing, you know, as a result of the financial closure. More than 10,000 people have lost their jobs because those banks and small saving and loans companies were shut down. The construction industry is growing at negative. The construction industry is a huge employer of artisans, masons, excavator operators, bulldozer operators, carpenters, and so on and so forth. Most of the contractors are sitting at home. Their equipment are packed. What jobs has he created? Show me in which sector he has created jobs.
But he has been consistent, and he and the president seem to suggest that you did nothing.
They just have a knack for,
knack
for propaganda. That's all this government is good at. They have this Goebbelian tactic. You know Goebbels, who was Hitler's PR expert. Just keep repeating something over and over and over again, and people come to believe that it's true. It's the same thing they did when we were in government. They just fixed the incompetent tag, and despite the fact that our government was performing, they just kept repeating incompetent. People came to believe that, oh, they'll make a more competent government. I mean, just look at what's been happening these 4 years. I mean, bungling, you know, president signs executive approval for something, you go and ask and say, oh, he was misled. Something happens, they say the president was unaware. I mean, what are you sitting there as the chief executive of this nation for? You don't read the files, you don't read the reports. This government has destroyed more jobs than it has created. That is a fact. And so they keep touting, we've created 1 million jobs. Where are the 1 million jobs? They can't be found anywhere.
Now, so...
but I'm just going to link it to Central Region.
Sure.
Central Region is a swing region. And so we've won it sometimes. NPP have won it sometimes. And if you look at the poverty profiles...
And while you continue, those are the pictures we took at Swedro as you entered the town. But you were talking about swing region in Central Region. Continue the conversation.
It's a swing region. And if you take the poverty profile of Ghana, now we have 16 regions, but when the regions were combined, after you took out the 3 northern regions, the Central Region was the 4th poorest region. And so if you re-aggregate the regions the same way, it's still one of the endemic poor regions. And so you come to Cape Coast and see good educational facilities and all that kind of thing, and you think that there's a certain prosperity here. But if you go into the rural areas in Central Region, you see utter poverty. And so we need to focus on it, you know. So even though it's in the south, the impression is that it's the northern regions that are poor, and that's where you find the poorest people. But you come here and find people in as desperate condition as the people in the northern region. So we need to make a special case for Central Region in terms of job creation. And it has a comparative advantage when it comes to agriculture. There's cocoa in Central Region. You know, they have palm oil here in Central Region. They have citrus like we're talking about. We must put the processing capacity here so that young people can get jobs. Those who want to farm and supply the agricultural value chain are able to do so. There's gold mining here. If we regulate gold mining properly, it can employ hundreds of thousands of people in Central Region here. And so we're going to take a new look at Central Region and see how we can, you know, jack up its potential
we are in Cape
for job
Coast,
creation.
and if I'm an ordinary citizen in Cape Coast watching this program now, and I believe that what you may say may reflect on related policies you may have for the other regions, what is in the manifesto, if it's about jobs, that you want to share with people in this region that will benefit them directly, or they have to tap into because you have captured them?
I've talked about the agro-processing value chain. I've talked about technical and vocational training, because you need to upscale skills for people to be able to get jobs. You might create the jobs, but if the person doesn't have the skill to do the job, there's no way they're going to get the job to do. And that's why I've been talking about apprenticeship and technical and vocational education. But one of our major projects is the 10 billion big push that is going to be invested in the country, and we're going to involve only Ghanaian companies Ghanaian registered companies to do those jobs because we want that money to stay in situ. They'll buy cement from cement distributors, they'll buy iron rods from iron rods distributors, they'll buy fuel from fuel stations. All this will help to create a stimulus that will create jobs in the small and medium enterprise sector. In order to stimulate that sector even further, we are cancelling income taxes for all small businesses that do below 200,000 Ghana cedis turnover. And so it means that those small shops, you know, at Kotokraba and all those other places will not have the income tax man coming and knocking on their doors anymore. They'll be able to reinvest their profits in their businesses so that they can grow their businesses. Like I said, Central Region has a lot of potential in gold mining, it's got in agro-processing, and so many other things that we can do. And so there's a lot that will benefit them. The fishing community, we're going to have a special focus for the fishing community so that we can regenerate the profits that they make. We're going to take another look at the Commander Sugar Factory. You know, we built that factory with a loan from the Indian government. It was supposed to be in two parts. There was the loan for the factory and the loan for the sugarcane growing. More often than not, you take the loan for the sugarcane growing, they'll grow the sugarcane, and the money for the factory is not ready. So we decided that let's get the factory first, then we know the factory is there. And then now give us the money for the sugarcane growing. The factory itself has land, about 3,000 acres that we wanted to crop. And then we're going to take outgrowers between Commander into Western region. All that place, they grow sugarcane. Yes, and so there's a sugarcane growing area there. And so it was going to become like a crop processing zone. And so they'll give them new breed of sugarcane that is fatter, it has more juice in it, and can produce more sugar. And so that loan was supposed to come from India. After we left office, this government refused to pursue that loan. And that's why, how come the factory is standing without any production to feed it. So when we come, we're going to reactivate that loan, get the loan, give it to the smallholder farmers. Part of it will go to the factory to do its own farm. And then we can create a whole sugar processing zone here. The net effect is that it will allow us to reduce our sugar imports, because then we can cut down the sugar imports, because this will produce about, we estimate, a third of the sugar that we eat in Ghana.
You are watching a conversation with the former president, John Dramani Mahama, NDC's 2020 candidate. He's on the move and he's in the Central Region. He's been here since Wednesday. You can join this conversation by sending us a text message via WhatsApp on 020-866-7000. 020-866-7000. You made a bold decision to choose a female running mate. Everybody knows Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. I remember several people have raised this, have eavesdropped, I've seen them on social media. Rollins picked a running mate from the Central Region. Later, Akar was later replaced by Professor John Evans-Atamils. John Evans-Atamils made you his vice. Later, you became a president. You chose Pakwese Misata. And now, you are a candidate again going into 2020. And you have a female candidate from the region. What is the secret bond between NDC and the Central Region?
There's no secret bond.
But it looks like all the vices who eventually, along the line, become the president.
We have a lot of capable people in our party who come from the Central Region.
Okay.
And when we decided to look for a running mate, we did not target Central Region. There were many names from different regions of the country. Indeed, I've said it, that there were 16 names at the end of the process that were worthy of consideration from varied regions. And so it was based on the merit of the people, you know, the marketability of the people, you know, what impact we wanted to have and all that. So based on those considerations, we whittled down to 5. And of the 5, 4 were men, 1 was a woman. And then by the time we finished the process, it ended on her. We did not start to look for somebody from Central Region. We didn't do that. So she's there on merit. She's worthy of the position. And I'm glad that we chose her. She's doing quite well on the campaign trail.
Okay, we'll be taking a short break. When we come back, I'll be talking to the former president on roads and other abandoned projects. Some traditional authorities have spoken. Ordinary Ghanaians who ply some of those routes have also spoken. We'll look at the plan for Okada riders, commercial drivers, and then other people in the security sector. He also spoke passionately about processes towards the 2020 elections. I'll play that soundbite when we return, and the conversation will continue. But let's watch some few commercials.
I think most of it when we travel outside, we're able to say that America is different from Ghana simply because of the infrastructure we see. The good roads, the good hospitals, the good schools and all that. And so if an amount of 10 billion is going to be pushed into an infrastructure to elevate it to a point where we're going to have that solace, like those in America and all that, then I think it's a very good thing. So if we're going to get that, I know it's going to create jobs, it's going to open up the economy and all that. So it's a very good thing, and I feel very excited about that.
Sa kwan wi aye wo so yi kotoba bi spinters ase na rough road obi aso nim say rough road yentimi ntina nche ye business ben ni si ba no wabeka kwan yi kota menim na NDC ye kwan wi nti oye wi no manya akwanya a medi table abesi ho a meye mo ba mani.
Oh, I manage sempa esense mimpo na ombae esumanye dide wo nimu dada ana mimpo no vision e course ni de wo man ni mu nsisanye JM kasa oman ni nsisanye ni dede e course mu obi a ready say obeba na san njuma nsam de hia e pa bi say me say ye kita application ye de chima ende njuma ni won tina koye say woni no bu pa ye fu aduma enne ye na e bi e ho ahye security mu ebi mu ye njuma enkase adwuma no eye adwuma de nanso akatua mpo na eye nwomunu ni na ye so oba no bibi adwuma obikiti job empo ade amanya na eye ni de something eye utini de ye na ya kai se susu a ya nkase ye advice ye ho ye group se oba panyin na beto santa kwakoto abade amano
Sinta mo programa ene fujo mambe deva ashindo wala katan ya doro jirabe ya amagalifia magaramete yisku kai kabe atumagbe otaba awra nako e mo bo education ha be education o mula ha ba magarete yimu dai de education ha school yo e gabo school ko maliu dan problem ko so do ha ata no beta no e gabo education ta ma witness them e mo kadimi fufu ye va ha agbono organimi ko e mo to mo gbian to so am ta me believe pa
opo me say yeah entrepreneurs no or boy in a way like all your apprentices they are train normal oh you're good but me time mission at the palm no yeah easy and move so this current youth will be and time pay this kind of trade no mission and it's a balance of boy or more in distance now. I think that the youth will go in to learn.
Before the previous administration exited office, on this particular campus, the Regional Maritime University, a vocational center was built, was to help students come up with their techniques when it comes to welding and all that. Because I quite remember the former president came to the school and then spoke about the fact that on the rig one time they needed welders to work there, and then it was very alarming that they didn't really have professional welders in Ghana. So based on that fact, that facility was set up. But since the government left office, nothing much had come out of it. So I think with the job creation, giving students the opportunity to have free vocational education after school, they would be able to come out and then set up some jobs for themselves.
When a criminal or an armed robber breaks into your home, he does not hail a Yezu or Kukudu. At that point in time, that criminal or that armed robber is thinking about his stomach. So I believe that a visionary leader like this that is bringing policies that is actually going to give some livelihood to the youth, I think will go a long way to grant us some safety within the community.
So you are still watching TVXYZ. This is also live on Wezo TV on Facebook and YouTube and several affiliates in Cape Coast and in Greater Accra region, one on Volta, one in the Volta region. I want to read a few text messages and we continue our conversation. This one says, kudos, John Dramani Mahama. You will surely win the 2020 elections. This one says, good morning, Mr. Host. Please tell the former president that if he doesn't win, I will kill myself. So he should do anything possible. And the conversation, God has already made him the president in spirit, but physical, the little mistake he will do, MPP will steal the election. This one is from Joseph Adai Bibiani in Western North. I remember we played a tape of another man who also wept as he, or sobbed as he spoke to us, suggesting that if you don't win this election, they are doomed. I've heard you tell many rallies that the 2020 election is about the destiny of the youth. Why that, and why would people want to put their lives, bank their lives on your success?
Because I've been afforded the opportunity to have been in office at the highest office of the land, and I've been afforded the opportunity to step back and take a look at what the challenges our country faces. And that's why I've said that fine, it's good to do social and economic infrastructure, but the challenge we face and the time bomb that is ticking is youth unemployment. And that's why I've said my new focus is on youth unemployment. I was watching that clip you showed where I talked about the welders. We needed 300 welders. We could find only 60. It is then I noticed that there's a certificate for professional welding. It's called the American Welding something.
That's those who are supposed to work on the rigs.
Certificate, yeah. You must have qualified in welding to that level to be able to work in the oil industry. So we had an oil industry that came. We think that welding is going as an apprentice by the roadside and welding. No. No oil company will take you if you don't have that American certificate. And so you notice the young boy was saying we built a facility there to train, people in the vocation so that they could work on the rigs and all that. That is what this country needs. We need to intensify our work in that area. We have the technical universities. When they go on break, we can bring in young people on a multimodal program who necessarily would not be students of the university, but we bring them in, create the facilities to train them in welding, in plumbing, electricians, and so on and so forth. And we can give them a certificate of having done this work so that they can also take it into the world of work. So there are a lot of ideas
that sounds very laudable, because I remember in the teaching profession, there used to be a modular program.
Exactly.
So when the main school ends,
then they bring those modular students in.
They call them pupil teachers,
exactly.
And they offer them some level of
We can
training.
do that in the vocational space, technical and vocational space, so that we leverage all the capacity we have for technical and vocational training, and then we bring young people in, train them, and they get the skills, and then they can go into the world of work. I was talking about Central Region too. Central Region is a tourist destination. We need to exploit that properly. One of the things in the big push that we want to do is to expand the road to Central Region, to make the traveling time shorter, and then aside from that, it will reduce the accident rates on the road, because no tourist wants to come, drive along this road, be involved in a car accident or so on and so on. So it will make it safer for people to come here. It will also make the driving time shorter, and then we can improve the roads that lead to the tourist centers. I mean, I traveled on the Kakum Road sometime, and it was not in very good shape. If we make it proper, people can go there. Already we've asphalted the roads in Cape Coast, and so if you're going to the castle and so on and so forth, it's fine. The road is good.
Let me read a few more text messages. This conversation will shortly continue. I'll be talking to the former president on how he responds to concerns about the road sector. Now, this one says, you have my vote, JDM, from Sami from Kumasi. The text message here says, I am John Arthur, watching you live from Accra. It says, I'm a student and one of the prestigious schools in the Central Region. Say, can you tell me we don't have fans in our dormitories, and also ventilation is poor. This is free SHS has made school difficult for us. I think the message is clear. He wants expanded services. And so let me move on to other text messages. This one says, JM, the youth are mad about your code and free TVET for the youth to transform the Ghana economy from King Kaka inside Takwa. My regards to Lord Mahama from King Kaka. So he sent the message twice. This one says, let me read 4 more. Looking at the flooding in the north and Ghana as a whole, what is your plan towards this?
With the flooding, yeah, it's a problem. If you take the flooding in the south and in Accra, it's a problem of planning. You know, Accra is surrounded in the northern parts by the Equapim Range. I don't know if you've done geography.
I know.
Yeah, you have the Equapim Range of mountains on the north of Accra. Now, Accra stands between the mountain range and the sea. When it rains on the mountains, rivers take their sources from there. And so you have the Odor and all of them taking their sources from the forest on the Equapim Range of mountains. And so when it rains, they want to go into the sea. And between them and the sea, you have this big city, unplanned, built on their waterways and all that. And when you do that, naturally the water will back up. And when the water backs up, it will flood the city. That's the problem with Accra. We need to get an engineering solution to it. Accra's problem is engineering and also sticking to the planning rules. We have, you know, local government authorities that are not able to manage the development of our communities. And you have traditional rulers who are willing to sell any land, even in riverbeds. One of the times when I was president, they opened the floodgates of the Wager Dam, and I flew with the helicopter over. I mean, it's easy to see that this is a flood channel where the Wager Dam, the water, when it is open, it passes there to the sea. People have sold the land in that channel. And so they had opened the spillways and houses were standing in water. People bring them there during the dry season and say, oh, I'm selling this piece of land. Never buy land in Accra in the dry season. If you want to buy land to build a house, go there during the rainy season, after it has rained.
Do you have any experience?
I don't have any experience, but I'm just giving free advice to people who want to build houses. If you want to build a house in Accra, go there after it has rained heavily for a whole day like it did recently, and go and take a look at the land they want to sell to you before you decide to buy it. But people go and buy it when it's dry, and when the rains come, he's built his house is standing in water. So it's an engineering problem. It will take some money. It will take quite a huge amount. We're trying to look at the big push and see how we can channel some of that money to solve the flood problem in Accra especially. But there are also problems in Kumasi. Kumasi has a big drain, and I know that sometimes it gets silted and it floods. So we'll look at all those flooding problems. But the northern one, you see, the north is crisscrossed by the white and the black waters. And that's why we used to have overseas, because the tributaries of the white and black water crisscross all over the place, and we didn't have bridges over them. And so if you wanted to go to, say, Yagaba, you had to drive all the way to Bolga and come around through Sandima into Yagaba. You know, now we're opening that place up. But anytime they spill from the Bagri Dam, then it brings excess water into the tributaries of the white and black water, and they bust their banks, and then they create flooding. That's a natural phenomenon. It's going to be very difficult to deal with it. But we came up with an engineering solution, which was the Pualugu Dam. It was the feasibility study, the design, everything was done in our time. I hear that this government has awarded it to Sino Hydro, and Sino Hydro is doing it. But there's supposed to be what we call a weir. And so the Pualugu Dam is going to be for agriculture. It will produce a little electricity, but most importantly, it will be good for flood control. Now, before they open the Bagri Dam, we will open our Pualugu Dam and
to swallow
gradually and ease a lot of the water out of it. So that when the water from the Bagri Dam comes, it will fill up Pualugu and it will ease the flooding downstream. So that's the purpose of that dam. And if it's going ahead, it's a good thing. If we come into office, we'll make sure we continue.
Now, let's move on to what has been the heart of many traditional authorities as we go around the country. It says they are passionately complaining about abandoned roads. In fact, yesterday, I monitored the reaction among those who spoke to us and even saw us along the route. They were pointing us or directing our attention to the roads. When we went to, is it Ekumfi? No, we went to the Onwa is in the Asen area. Ekunfe Etuam. The road was very bad. Yeah. And it is even worse along the Asen area. I want us to listen to one of the traditional authorities, because the road he spoke about is specifically supposed to connect Chifupraso and Asen Fosu. I spoke to some taxi drivers. I want you to listen to them, because I noticed that apart from the taxi drivers who spoke to us, there were some young men and women on motorbikes who actually hijacked you on the road. Yeah. Let's watch them. Let's have the opportunity. Let's give the benefit to those watching us to also be part of the video.
Milorufi Fosutu, Ase Adiamla, Ekwa we eko Chufu Plaso, Eko Cape Coast, Eko Pie Ofindun Kwa. Oh, Ekwa we Eko Longe.
Na Ekwa we must start here chana.
Okay, Ekwa we nanka ye Papa John Mahama, a blessing nanka bucha Ekwa we. But I say, since I be mununa, I'm almost stop we. But I have buy no na. Oh yes, almost started. I said, I must enjoy. Okay.
Na hamu pa on.
Oh, I can't read it. The number I say, auto pass and I say, oh, China, oh, Ama, never mind, Jama. I never know.
If you're not the scene, you say you're too about free solo. A fine almost to us, your former contract will be our master. The scene, the shop way and I'm so as a watch as well, and the point family, your good support.
Yeah, so you saw yourself in the shot. I was there. Normally, I do the backup. The professional cameramen are there, and because of how inquisitive I am, I try to look out or fish for some of these videos. Now they stopped you. Yeah. They forced you to stop. They were on motorbikes, and it was a very bumpy road, and so you couldn't even drive at top speed. Now, how did you react? And especially, is this one of the Cocoa roads you started?
Yeah. This is the road that leads from Asim Fosu to Chifopraso. Now, let me tell you the geography of that area. The road from Asim Fosu, it comes all the way from Ashanti through New Edubiase. And then you come down through Asim Fosu, and you come out at Yamuransa Junction. Now, this particular road, we gave it out on the Cocoa Roads program because it's a big cocoa growing area. It links the Asim Fosu road.
So that is the road.
Yeah, that's the road.
And the drains at the sidelines obviously confirmed that it was a project that started some time ago.
No, it was being worked on. Okay. The contractor actually formed the road. He widened it, he graveled it, and was busy working on it when we left office. And they asked all the contractors to stop. And it's been lying for 4 years now. It's deteriorated. It will take some additional money to be able to do it. But I was just telling you, so from Asim Fosu, you can drive across this road to Chifopraso. Now from Chifopraso, you can come down to Daboase, close to Takrady, and go to Takrady. You can also take another road that takes you to Takwa.
Which means it will divert a lot of traffic from the main Cape Coast Takrady Highway.
It makes it easier. Right now, you have to come down to Yamuransa because that road is very bad. You come down to Yamuransa and come through Cape Coast and go towards Takrady. Or you can still take the Kakum road and come out at Cape Coast and then turn right. But if we were to do that link and engineer those roads, it will make life very easy for the people in Central Region. And that's why we awarded it on the Cocoa Roads contract. If that road had been finished, it would have made it very easy for people to transit between those two major trunk roads. But it's one of the projects that we will look at when we come.
There are several of those road projects, and this specific one just reflects the many abandoned projects.
Yes.
I know how any government sweats to raise funds, either government-funded project for government-funded projects or loans.
Yeah.
How do you feel when, after so much sweat, to look at the feasibility studies, raise the capital, get contractors on the road, start the project, and you have to go all over again because a decision has been taken to stop the project and then allow it to go?
When we're in government, you know, the thing about this was the funding was assured. And so the contractors were working quite speedily because Cocoa Board was paying them, you know, in a timely manner. what we did with regards to the cocoa roads project was we decided that in the cocoa growing regions, because we benefit from the cocoa that is grown, it will help us even if we do the road so that we can haul out the cocoa in good time. So we decided that anytime we went for the loan syndication, we will take $150 million out of the money. The first time we went for 1.8 billion cedis.
Dollars or cedis?
Dollars, sorry. Cocoa syndication. $1.8 billion. And we took 150 million out of it and put it into the fund. We call it the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation Project. And so we put that into the fund to pay the contractors who were working on that. So it meant that the roads were sustainable in terms of, financing. The point is, I heard the Cocoa Board Chief Executive said we awarded 2 million of the contracts. The point is, the contractors, when you award a contract, the money is not due immediately because it will take him like 24 months, 36 months to finish the contract. And as he continues working, he presents certificates and you continue paying him. And every year you know that $150 million is coming in. Every year you know $150 million is coming in. And so what we did was we put it with some of the banks and said, look, you pre-finance these certificates, so that we can pay you. Because we knew that over 5 years, it was a 5-year program, $150 million for 5 years was going to come into the cocoa roads.
That would have done a lot of roads. I want us to watch this particular section of the road between Chifupraso and Asin Fosu, because that road connects Asin Central and the Chifupraso area.
Yeah.
Now, that road is connecting one of the constituencies occupied by one of the stalwarts in the MPP, Kennedy Japan. I know that if you go to some parts of the eastern region, for example, because you made reference to this in one of your addresses, I think at Abra, where you said when the former president decided to suspend the cocoa roads, he allowed some to go on. Is this strange, or how do you respond to this question that an influential person in the MPP like Kennedy Japan would not be able to influence government to tackle this stretch of the road in his own constituency?
Yeah, the point I made was he's not been treated properly, because if you look at the role he plays in the MPP, I would have thought that, his road is one of those they'll prioritize. When we awarded the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation projects, one of the roads was the president's hometown, from Apedra through Chebi to Bonso Junction. And so it was a road that we awarded. And then we awarded this Chifupraso road. We awarded several other roads in the cocoa growing region. So when they came, they asked all the contractors to stop. And then surprisingly, you know what they did? They asked the contractor working on the Apedra Chebi Bonso road to continue. And so he continued. That road is finished. It's a first-class road today.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they could continue that road, what stopped them from continuing this Chifupraso, such a very important highway, The thing is, the road from Chebi through, from Apedra through Chebi to Bonso is no longer a major highway. The major highway is from Apedra to Bonso Junction. It's a bypass from the Chebi road. And yet, that is a more minor road. The traffic is less. The traffic on this Chifupraso road is much higher than that road. But because it's the president's hometown, they continued and finished it. You should go there today and pass on that road. It's a first-class road. We're about halfway when we left office. And they asked the contractor to continue. He did it. They asked him to do asphalt in Chebi town and all that. The cost of that road could have finished this Chifupraso road. But, considering the kind of person... But
it's obvious the president was giving
considering
priority.
the kind of person Kennedy is,
No, but
I'd have thought that
it also suggests
give him some consideration and do that road for him.
Me, as an observer, I see that as pure discrimination, where the president decided to favor his area. Is that what you would do, or you will make sure you share resources evenly across the country?
I've been president before. We share resources evenly. It doesn't matter who comes from. It doesn't matter who voted for us or who didn't vote for us. We've always been equitable when we share resources. If it's electricity, we look at the places that need extension of electricity and we do it. If it's water, we did small town water systems across the length and breadth of this country. If it is hospitals, we build hospitals all over the place. If it is schools, when we're sharing the e-blocks, they were built all over the country. And so we've never been discriminatory when it comes to projects like that. We won't say, because I was president and I come from Bole Bamboy, then everything in Bole Bamboy, you know, should get priority over the rest of the country. We don't do things like that.
You mentioned schools. Let me take advantage. Free SHS.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear people scream. They want to hear from you, say something about your plan for the sector. The conversation in town, especially from your opponents, is that you will cancel it. You've spent a lot of time trying to explain. For those watching us now, what really will stand out differently from the implementation strategy now?
We actually began the free SHS program, and it's on record, and everybody knows it. However much they lie, and that's the kind of lie and propaganda they do, how much they lie. We started free SHS progressively. The difference between us and them was that the Constitution says we should introduce it progressively, because the Constitution knows that it will take a lot of planning, it will take a lot of infrastructure to be able to implement it properly. So it says progressively introduce free secondary education. And then they said they want to do it immediately. But even then, if you look at how they did it progressively, because they didn't start the whole 3 years. Those who were in the chain already, they allowed to complete without free SHS, and they started from first year and took 3 years to complete it. Now that's fine. If they decided to do it like that, they could have done that. But the priority work should have been to expand the infrastructure immediately. Now, what better do you have than the fact that there are secondary schools ongoing being built? You should have just continued and built those secondary schools and posted children to those secondary schools so that the congestion that you faced that created the double track would not have happened. Now, the Ministry of Education themselves came out and said, I left a debt of 39 million Ghana cedis on the free SHS program. What free SHS program? You say I didn't start it. How did I leave a debt on free SHS? So it just gives a lie to the propaganda they do that we didn't start the free SHS. We started it, but we started it progressively. I've been giving the example of if you want to raise poultry and do chickens, what do you do first? You build the hen coop, and then you go and buy the chickens and bring it. But if you go buy the little chickens and bring them home, how are you going to be able to look after them? Where are you going to keep them? And so they should have just continued from where we left off, build the secondary schools quickly, activated them, operationalized them, and sent children in there. Unfortunately, they didn't do that, and we ended with a double track. They go around saying that when I come, I'll cancel free HS. That's a bloody lie. It's not true. We're rather going to make it better. We will end the double track. As soon as we come, we'll tackle the schools we're building. And one of the things we notice is we can even do it faster, because many of the existing secondary schools have extra land. They were acquired in Nkrumah's time, and unfortunately, private developers are even encroaching on it. So we will take part of that land and build a second secondary school. Let me give the example of West Africa Secondary School. It serves Medina, Adenta, that huge area. The demand for secondary education is high. So we put one of the community-day secondary schools in Fafraha. We put one at Atomic Kwabenya. Then you have West African Secondary School. We can put another community-day secondary school on the West African Secondary School land, and you have two secondary schools on the same plot. It will absorb that huge number of children in that area.
Which will take care of the gold
Exactly, exactly. And I've said that when I become president, within 1 year, we'll cancel the double track. We'll be able to let all the children go to school at the same time. And then we're going to add the private schools, especially in areas where we don't have secondary schools. If there's a good private school, we will bring them on board and we'll send some of the children there, and they'll enjoy the benefits of free SHS. So now, it's not true what they are peddling around, that when I come, I'm going to cancel free SHS.
We don't have much time. We'll talk to issues about the elections and EC's activities, because I have a tape I'll play. But briefly, we don't have much time. You've made some promise, and I see a lot of enthusiasm, excitement among those who are into Okada or Prajia or Mahama Kandu or is it Kambu business. But commercial drivers are uncertain, and some of them are a bit jittery. Do you have any policies, or is the manifesto, does the manifesto have anything that makes sure they are also guaranteed in terms of their jobs?
One, the legalization of Okada is not going to disrupt anybody's business. The Okada business is there. It's a reality. The motorcycles are there. They are picking people. We can try to behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sun like it doesn't exist, but it is there. In some of the rural areas, you can't get a car to go anywhere. The only means of transport to take you from a certain point to another point is by a motorcycle. And so it's something that has come. You can't do anything about it. And that's why we say we'll legalize and regulate so that they do it in a safer manner, so that we reduce any risks that people will suffer injury or death as a result of using that mode of transport. With the driver union, like GPRTU, we've always had a very close relationship with them. And we always try to create an environment where they are able to do their business well. And that's why we manage fuel prices in a way that they do not escalate, so that they too could make a handsome profit when they come into, when they're in business. Aside from that, we used to order vehicles for the GPRTU and let them give it to their members on a work and pay basis. And then they pay over a period of time and the vehicle becomes theirs. Before we left office, we brought a huge batch of vehicles, Mercedes-Benz mid-sized buses, and a lot of small vehicles for taxi services.
Under the Maslock
Under the Maslock project. We left those vehicles there. We registered them and we're in the process of handing them over to the GPRT, and the new government came. When the new government came, for a strange reason, they wanted to create the impression that the vehicles were ordered in their time. So even though the vehicles were registered with 2016 number plates, they took off all the 2016 number plates and re-registered the vehicles in another year's date within their era. And then instead of handing over the vehicles to the GPRTU, they've shared them to their party chairman. I know several of their party chairmen and other executives who have these buses and vehicles, you know. And I said, this is not right. The vehicles were ordered for the GPRTU. And so what you do is they come with their members. They know their members who can take those vehicles and afford to pay for them. But they didn't do that, you know. And so I said the other time, I said, I hope that they are paying for the vehicles, because if they're not paying for them and they think they are gifts, when we come, we're going to go after them and take those vehicles back. And we can re-auction them to the GPRTU and other commercial drivers for whom we brought those vehicles.
Okay, so this is an interview with the former president, NDC's 2020 candidate. We are just about wrapping up this conversation of all what he's doing around the country. If the electoral process is not clean, he cannot be guaranteed of what he wishes for to win the December 7 election and become Ghana's president come January 7, 2020. He spoke at Abra in the Central Region, I think 2 days ago. He sounded very angry or maybe passionate. I don't know how you want to listen to it, because this is not the John Mahama we heard that day. Listen, and I'll ask him why he's concerned.
We are not troublemakers. We are not troublemakers. Yeah, NDC4, we want peace. We want to make sure that all of us believe in this election, so that if you win or lose, you are prepared to accept. And so they think that we're just causing trouble. But this can lead this nation to chaos, because I've said it. This occasion, December 7th, if this election is flawed, we will not accept it. We will not accept it. Who accepts a flawed election? Nobody. And everything the Electoral Commission is doing is showing that we're heading to a flawed election. New voters roll are by with the software and the hardware. What's it? It's supposed to eliminate manual verification. What's it? The old voters register, no? It couldn't capture some people's fingerprints. And to make capture fingerprints now, you have to use manual verification. And to what the facial so manual, when to me and capture, or the facial, when to me and capture, then they'll use manual verification. And so the BVRs for Foraba, we've not tested them. They've not been tested. On election day, you're going to have BVRs there. At the Onsabetodo, it says it doesn't recognize you. It will put your face, it says it doesn't recognize you. So you have to do manual verification. We're going to end up with more manual verification than we've ever had in the history of Ghana. And when we talk, everybody is quiet. Sasemba, then they'll say, oh, it is this person's fault. But we've given enough warning signals there. The Electoral Commission is creating problems. Look at this exhibition. Ekwa, you can't find your name. Names are missing. How can names be missing? We've done registration, we've done exhibition of register. Sometimes they make a mistake with your name, or your name is pushed to some other polling station. But Echo Polling Station, where people registered, 21,000 names missing. After I say, oh, we found the missing names. Where did the names go? Where did they go that you went and found them? I say, yeah, missing names, no. Aka 7,000. 7,000. Only 7,000. Also, Aka only 7,000. Even one name missing disenfranchises one Ghanaian. You know, and see, when we talk about these things, they think we're just trying to cause trouble. But we want the right thing to be done. And we've done filing of nominations without a certified register. So I got people to sign my...
So you heard the former President John Dramani Mahama. I've listened to people on the ground, and some NDC supporters sometimes, those who know the 0 to 0, say the former president must sound very aggressive to send the right signal to the EC. And I realized when you spoke at Abra, those who were cheering you appeared a bit more appreciative of the concerns you have. Do you think that the EC is addressing them? Should anybody be worried?
Yeah, we should be worried. And my tone should, when I speak about it, I wasn't angry. I'd rather say passionate.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that my tone should reflect the urgency of the problem that we potentially can face on election day. And that's why I spoke passionately about it. You see, elections are about consensus, that we build a consensus and we move together. And that's why the IPAC is such a very important body. Today, let me tell you, Eric, the IPAC is like an enemy to the EC. The EC doesn't want the IPAC. They've gone to resurrect plenty dead parties and brought them to IPAC so that they can create a majority there and bulldoze their way through. Fine, bulldoze your way through. Don't build consensus. On the day if the thing backfires, it's going to backfire on you. All that we're doing is to help you have a credible election. So that when you have a credible election, who does the credit go to? It goes to you, the commissioners. But when you see us as enemies and you want to do things your way, you know, without factoring in our concerns, then you end up with the kind of things we're seeing. This is the first time I'm seeing huge numbers of names missing after we've done the registration. You can have somebody's name is missing here and there. Well, how can you have a situation where the first day you go, 21,000 names are missing? Then an MP's name is not there. Then the very next day you secretly bring a new one and say, oh, his name was there, he didn't see it. You know, all this stuff.
And even in that instance at Ashaiman, the EC official exposed the EC by saying that they lied.
Exactly. You know, and this EC, I know they are new, so you might not be as competent, but you always have a back office and technical people who backstop you. And so you must rely on those people to show you what to do. But they have a mind of their own, those three commissioners. They're doing things the way they want, you know. And I hear that a lot of people who are very capable and technically competent, because they served under Charlotte Osei's administration, they've transferred them out to the district. And they don't have as much competence in the headquarters as they should have, especially with experienced hands. There are some new advisors on IT and all that kind of thing. And that's why, for the first time, I begin to doubt the competence of our commission. This has been a model commission to the whole of Africa. And I've always felt confident that we have a commission that on the day will rise up to the occasion. This time, I am afraid I don't have that level of confidence. But we all should go into the election feeling confident that we'll have a transparent, free and fair election that is done competently. Unfortunately,
but so in this case, what do you expect the average voter to do on that day?
Well, I expect the average voter to exercise his civic responsibility, to go out and cast their votes peacefully. I can anticipate some chaos. People might not find their names, you know, in one place. Their names will probably appear somewhere else. And I've been an MP before, and I know how these things happen, you know, because if a voter cannot find his name here, and you go put his name in a polling station several kilometers away, he's not going to drive there and go and see if his name is there, you know. And so on that day, we could have chaos. I've warned about the BVRs. These are new BVRs that they're going to use. How they will perform, we don't know. And so on the day you put your finger, it doesn't work. They say it has facial, whatever, they do, it doesn't work. It means that you have to fill the manual verification form. And the more you fill manual verification form, the less the credibility
process.
of the
So I believe that he said much. What you and I need to do on that day is to protect the ballot and do it at all costs to ensure that the figures reflect what Ghanaians have decided in general. I'll be taking a message, as we do always, from the former president. I've received lots and lots of text messages. I may not be able to read all, but I will showcase that we've received them as such. But unfortunately, we don't have much time. So at this time, I would take a message from the former president to Ghanaians, and then the text messages will be rolled in. What do you have to tell Ghanaians at this stage?
Well, hello, and thank you for allowing me into your homes, offices, and your personal space once again. But let me tell you a story. With my daughter Farida, it makes it possible for me to empathize with issues affecting women. It makes me see the world from the perspective of a young girl growing into adolescence and what prospects are there for her in the Ghana that we are building. I began to notice the obstacles women often face, and I began to see the discrimination and sometimes the violence. As Farida's father, I find it my personal obligation to make Ghana a safer place for women, because Farida will live in a safe and equal world only when all Ghanaian girls and women live in a safe and equal world. And this is why the NDC manifesto, which we call the People's Manifesto, makes a pledge to all Ghanaian women that the new NDC government will offer them the best support ever against domestic violence and in favor of women's empowerment. We'll create a national hotline to address gender-based violence. We'll build more shelters for abused women. We'll provide moral, social, and economic support to victims. And that is why I need your support. Support Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman and I to make Ghana a safe place for all our girls and our women. It is the first and fundamental step towards true equality and towards women's empowerment. Just take a pause for a minute and think about this. Men and women experience life differently. They face different obstacles and have to deal with sometimes completely different problems. If only men were to be in charge, the obstacle faced by women will be invisible. Nobody will talk about their problems. Nobody will try to take these obstacles down. Not because men are evil, but simply because men don't face those obstacles. So they don't see them. You don't see obstacles that you don't face. And that is why it is important to have women in politics. Gender quotas are not a mere exercise in compassion or tokenism. They are a moral necessity. Our nation, like any other nation, is composed of both men and women. And gender quotas make sure that women's voices also count. This is the only way to make sure that we see things from all perspectives, that we see all the obstacles and all the problems, and that we find solutions for everyone, irrespective of our gender. In our quest to create 1 million decent and sustainable jobs that will guarantee our youth jobs, we have our women in mind. As we prepare, thanks to you for your votes, to implement a 10 billion big push investment, we have our women in mind. We'll build for them markets to sell their wares and be economically independent. We'll build roads to link farms with market centers to make the transportation of their produce faster and easier. We'll build health facilities across the country to make access to healthcare easier and available. We'll support our girls and women to learn new skills and vocations under the National Apprenticeship Program and the free TVET program, handing over to them startup kits to prepare them to start their own small businesses. The People's Manifesto also pledges that the new NDC government will work towards the attainment of a minimum of 30% quota of appointments to go to women. We'll increase maternity leave to 4 months and pass the necessary legislation for the betterment of our girls and our women. This is how we will make sure that every voice really counts. Join Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman and I on this path towards creating a truly one Ghanaian nation by empowering our women to exercise their fundamental rights and to have a voice in our country. We also deserve to live in a Ghana where every person's voice counts. And so join me in my quest for a better Ghana. Don't hesitate to support the change. Vote John Mahama. Vote NDC on 7th December 2020.
So that was the message from the former president to all Ghanaians. Very loaded. It captures almost everything any voter is supposed to be interested in. I've received lots of text messages. I don't know whether the camera can capture them as I roll them. You can see as many text messages as possible I've received. I've not read all these. Unfortunately, I'll try to read about 10 of them. And you can see the green mark here suggesting that they have not been read. I'll read a few of them, but I just want to share with you that we've received them. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. Thank you for sharing them with us. I'll read just to select them at random. This one says, please, I want to ask my father what he's going to do about state collapsed factories. Emmanuel watching from Ashaiman. This one says, please, what will you do about salary arrears? Because there are people who have 4 to 6 years salary arrears. This is Amma. Last one says, building permits and high cost of cement is a burden to Ghanaians. How much should be paid for a story building in a ground floor building? Question mark. And I acknowledged all the messages you have sent. If I have time, I'll respond to you one-on-one on my phone. My name is Erica Hanyo, and we're privileged to speak to the former president, John Dramani Mahama, who is NDC's 2020 candidate. Today, he will continue his tour of the Central Region. Where's your first stop today?
Our first stop is to greet a funeral.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost one of our founding members, and he was a member of our National Executive Committee for a long time, Mr. Minta Kofi Binta. And so we're going to go, today is his 1 week celebration. We're going to visit the family. And then after that, we'll start the tour from Efutu area
towards Cape Coast. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wezo TV on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, Volta One TV. Thank you, Ago TV, Accra FM, Class FM, Power FM, which is an affiliate of TVXYZ, and then Brenya TV here in the Central Region, and several I cannot mention now because of time. And we hope to be back with your platforms live when John Mahama hits the road later this morning. Thank you for watching.